Ooh, that was hot. Hello and welcome to my channel, Haylee Marie Vintage. Today I have a super fun sewing project for you as usual. I believe this is a 1950s pattern. This is the pattern. It's super cute. I'm really excited to make this. So basically this is a dress that the darts actually are like folds in here instead of like your normal dart. But you can see here how this basically folds in like a V, and I'm really excited. I have a dress from the 50s I absolutely love. Spooky. I just really like these, and I'm really excited to try this. And then in one of the styles, which I'll actually probably just put up like here-ish. My cat is very adventurous right now. Can we not? Okay, go do that. If that's what you want to go do it. Then has this bolero that they actually show being worn under it that I'm very intrigued by. So I'm gonna make the bolero out of my go-to cotton lawn. It does say to use chiffon. I don't have chiffon. I don't feel like ordering chiffon. If this works really well and I really like it, I'll order a chiffon, but I don't want to deal with chiffon unless I know it's going to work. And then the dress I'm gonna make out of this lovely fabric that I picked up on my trip to Pennsylvania from, I believe, Zinks. I really love this fabric. I've been waiting to bust it out. We're gonna do that in this fabric. I think this will be really lovely. What I will say, so this is a pencil skirt. Any of you who've been around this channel, I don't love a pencil skirt, so I'm just gonna actually put a gathered skirt on this dress instead of the pencil skirt. So I will be changing the silhouette a little bit, but that is basically what I'm doing with this project. So let's go ahead and jump into the cutting of the fabric. All right, here we are. I am starting out by cutting the bolero. These were really simple pieces and a pretty easy cutting job. I did cut them with a like wide enough seam allowance that was additional, I think about an additional 1/2 inch to use French seams for this. I have really loved knowing French seams for pieces like this that are going to be really basic blouses that I'm going to use all the time, and so this really helps me make sure that what I'm making will last a really long time, which is something that is really important to me as someone who's trying to sew as sustainably as possible. It's no secret that cutting and marking my pattern pieces is my least favorite part of this process, and so here I am doing the top. This was actually also pretty simple, besides because the darts here are not like traditional type of darts, so there's a lot less marking to do. Because of the fact I wanted to do a full skirt, because I don't really like how pencil skirts look on me, I was able to basically like not have to deal with all the complicated skirt pieces, which is always really, really nice for me. Here's the process of me basically cutting my own pattern for the full skirt. I just kind of use whatever fabric I have left, and in this case I cut 28 inches above the selvage. I like to use the selvage because then I don't need to use any bias tape or fold over twice. I have found now that I actually think 28 inches is not my preferred length. I probably need to do about 30. I like to leave some hem wiggle room just because if this piece is ever not going to be mine, I want somebody to have the ability to take the hem down for someone taller since I am quite short. But otherwise, this is a really simple thing. I just kind of use my rotary cutter and measure and mark and things like that. Super easy, super simple. And I don't usually sew the same day I cut, but I was feeling pretty motivated. So I did actually sew the whole bolero in this day. So here I am starting with just getting the facing all sewn down with the edges, so that way it will be easy to attach and be super, super clean. And then here I'm actually doing the side seams of the bolero, which, like I said, I decided to do these French seams. While I do this, I want to real quick kind of talk about sewing and what it does for me. So I had no plans to do a project this weekend. I was going to give myself a few weekends off from sewing, but during this time of the year, I started having really complicated dental procedures done. So basically, I had a really complicated root canal situation where I was going to the dentist every single week, and it was just driving my anxiety really high because one of the dentists didn't numb me correctly, and I like motioned to him that he hadn't numbed me correctly, and he was just like, you can hang in like 5 more minutes. And I was like, well, I mean, my mouth was full of stuff, but it was like 5 minutes of torture, and after that I just had a really hard time seeing the dentist. I have found that sewing is something that really helps take my mind off of things that make me really anxious, and I found it to be a really meditative practice for me. So I just decided to sew this project because I was in a headspace where I just needed to not be in my headspace for a little bit and focus on something else. And I really like sewing because I can focus on a podcast or an audiobook or a TV show, and I can just sew, and it kind of just really helps me distract me from like all the things that give me really, really major anxiety. So yeah, so this is kind of, I guess, like my terrible dentist process dress, because this is what I did to keep me sane during the root canal procedures that were really complicated for me. I've seen the dentist every week for 6 weeks now, and I'm still not done. And I'm just feeling really frustrated and drained and tired. And sewing really, really helps me just like quiet my mind and feel better. All right, enough serious talk. I'm getting pretty close to being done on this bolero. So what I'm doing here is I am pinning the facing to the bolero. I didn't do the best job on this facing, but that's totally okay. The way I'm going to wear this bolero, it doesn't matter as much. I really like the part where you put the facing on a piece like this. It's really satisfying because it goes all the way around the edges and just feels really fun and nice to do for whatever reason. And then here you can see I am just ironing the sewing work I did. This is looking really great and shaping up, and all I have left to do is hand sew some things and put in the elastics of the sleeves so they'll be billowy like they should be. So here I am just ironing the channels, and here I am just using a safety pin on the end of elastic to get the elastic through the channel. This is one of my least favorite parts of the process as well, just because a lot of times I accidentally release the safety pin and then it gets stuck. If it all went smoothly, it would be different, but getting around all the seams and stuff, it's just not a very fun part of the process for me. And then as always, here I am sewing in the facing. I'm sewing it down. And like usual, I have a little spooky cat coming to join me. She loves to sit in my lap while I hand sew, and I love having her because she's warm and my apartment is freezing this time of year. So here she is. I had to learn a new skill for this, and I thought this would be a great time to address how I learn new skills. We have this really amazing resource now that you're on right now called YouTube. So I use a lot of different places to learn how to make something new, and so in this case, this is a Professor Pincushion, and I'm learning how to do kind of the loop, the like thread loop that you then can hook your button through. I am sitting here and just watching the video, following along and learning. It was really interesting because the other day I was having a conversation with my mom about how I think I've officially surpassed my grandmother in her seamstress abilities. And my mom was like, well, that's true. You have all these resources. She didn't have the internet. She couldn't just watch a video to learn a new skill. She had to learn everything from reading books and sewing patterns, which I think is a really important point. I learn best from watching videos as well as reading the sewing books, but if I just had to learn how to do things by reading the sewing books, things would take me a lot longer to learn and it wouldn't be as nice. That said, the button loop I made here is like not the best button loop I'm sure I'll ever make in my life because it's the first one, but I still think it's really cool how easy it is to get to learn a new skill. I'll link the video that I used to learn how to do this down below. All right, good morning. It is the day after the first day. So yesterday, like I said, I'm doing these kind of check-ins in the morning to give you guys a realistic idea of how much time things take me. So yesterday I did all the cutting during my lunch break at work just because I need the light of day to be able to see things well enough. I don't really have like a good spot in my apartment to cut fabric that is well lit enough at night. And then after I got off work about, I think 5 or 6-ish, is when I started sewing, and I was able to wrap up the bolero around, I think 10 last night. It is now noonish today, and I'm gonna get started on the dress. I'm gonna start with a bodice and hopefully at least wrap that today, but I am feeling slightly optimistic that I could maybe finish the whole dress today. We'll see. I think that's it for kind of my morning check-in. Let's now hop into me making things. Here I am making my first mistake from not reading the pattern instructions, and I am sewing the facings together when in fact you're actually supposed to be sewing the facings to each of the bodice, the front bodice and the back bodices separately. So you are watching me currently making a mistake, and I will have to tear out all these stitches in just a few minutes. I didn't do that part on camera, but I think it's important to acknowledge that everybody makes mistakes. And I am making a unfortunate one here because I didn't read the instructions and I thought I knew better. Alright, so here I am post unpicking. I'm so glad I caught reading the instructions before I sewed the back and the front bodice together like I normally would, because then I would have had a lot more unpicking to do. The other thing to note, I did alter this pattern another way by adding a zipper up the back instead of on the side. I just prefer back zippers, and if I know how to make the pattern alteration, I'm always going to opt for a back zipper instead of those awful side zippers that you have to like wedge yourself into. No thank you. And so here I am now doing the proper thing and putting the facing on the piece of bodice. This is the front bodice. Here I am now sewing the facing down the way the instructions told me to, and then I am going to clip all of the corners and get it turned inside out and ready to iron. And then here I am actually following the pattern directions where basically you're sewing the sides of the bodice and then you're sewing the facing together this way. This is not, I would say, standard construction, but it definitely worked better for a pattern like this. So like I said, I'm glad I read the directions because there's no way I could have gotten this pattern to turn inside out and have the facings look the way they were supposed to if I didn't do it this way, which is why the pattern tells you to, obviously. And so then after that, I am then hand stitching all of the facings down using, I think it's a slip stitch. It's the one where you pick up only one thread that's on the visible side and have more visible threads on the other side, which I should look up what that's called. But that is what I am doing here. And now we have the bodice completely done, so I'm starting in on the skirt. I'm just sewing up the sides and back seam of the skirt, and I am leaving a part open in the back for the zipper to go through. Nothing too exciting here. Spooky is very involved in watching me sew in this case, which normally she doesn't really care. And we've had some near close calls that have made me anxious when she watches me sew this intently. So I'm glad she's watching from where she is because she can't pounce without going over me. Here I have gathered the skirt. The focus for this part isn't great, and I apologize for that. I'm learning a new camera. I am sewing the gathered skirt to the bodice here. I did have one chunk where I sewed where I wasn't, like I got some extra fabric in between that I had to unpick, but otherwise this part went pretty smoothly for the most part. And then off camera, like usual, I have enclosed the waist seam in bias tape, and then here I am sewing down the hem for the final bit of hand sewing I have to do on this project. I'm pretty pleased with how quick this was for me. I really like this bodice pattern because the way you do the darts is quick. I will say another mistake I made here is you aren't ever supposed to take the basting out of the darts, and I did, and it definitely doesn't look as nice. But next time, we'll not do that next time. So once I get this all hand hemmed, which in this case I was only able to leave, I believe, like a ½ an inch at the hem, which usually I like to leave 2 inches because at only 5'2", I like this dress to be able to be lengthened for a potential future owner that's not me and still have it hit them where they want. I don't really like having really small hem allowances. After I finish all this hand sewing, we are ready for the reveal. Alright, you have just seen the reveal. I hope you enjoyed it. Spooky's really hyper, so you're going to hear noise in the background. It just is what it is. I don't know. I came home and she was a little demon. I've been gone most of today, so that checks out. So for the reveal, I went to do it outside in one of my favorite parks in the city. It's not really a park, it's kind of like a slab of concrete that overlooks something. And of course, I'm driving there. It's not raining. The second I get out of the car, it starts raining. And then the second I pack up all my equipment and put it back in the car after like persevering and shooting while filming, it then stopped raining, which is super cool. The footage from that might be a little bit brief and a little bit rainy, but hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless. So let's kind of talk through this project, what went well, what maybe didn't. Actually, overall, this project went pretty well. So this here is the bolero. It's so funny since I had not planned on making this bolero at all. I can tell you that like I wouldn't make it, I don't think, again. This is the fabric I wanted in. I can't really imagine making it again, maybe unless I decide I want a black version. I do really like this for layering under things. I will note that because this bit is a little bit short, I had to pin this down actually to make sure it like wouldn't pop out or do anything funky. That's kind of it on the bolero. And then for the, just throwing things, let me get this back up for the dress. I love this dress. Oh, hello, you scary beast. What are we doing? Everything is going to the chaos. Hey, Boo Bear, if you're going to be here, you have to be on my lap. Otherwise, you're going to jump onto things I don't want you on. Come on. Definitely a good first go on this pattern, and I do really, really like the dress, but there's like a few things I would change. The back is like a little loose on me, and I don't know if I could fix that with darts or how exactly I would fix that, because like the bottom of the back isn't too loose, but the top back, I don't have very broad shoulders, so this isn't a huge surprise. I have really, really slim shoulders. So I'm not like super shocked that the back is a little bit too wide. This happens to me with a lot of vintage pieces, and at some point I really need to learn how to adjust that because it will get me to like better fitting garments. This is like the worst zipper I've done in a long time. I don't know why it is so warped and awful. Hello. But it is. It's terrible. So basically, I think it's because I like pulled the fabric too much. It's funny because it's probably the best zipper I've made ever when it comes to like the tops matching and the bottoms matching, and that's because I like stretched it and made it match. And I think I actually prefer having these not match perfectly at the top and the waist and having a less bumpy zipper. So I have to kind of figure out what's going on here. I do really like the shape of this skirt. It's a little bit less gathered in the front than it is in the back, and for me, I always find that really flattering and I really like it. The other thing, I don't know if this would help with the like kind of looseness on the back. I actually think I probably need to take the sleeves, or I guess the straps up just probably like by like a ½ inch. Spooky needs all the attention right now because I've been gone for 4 hours. Do we have attachment issues? Yeah. Actually, she loves her alone time, and I think she hates that I'm always home. And then the last thing, I'm gonna figure out how to get in and stitch this actually. So I thought you were supposed to take the stitching out of here because they have you baste it, and then later they tell you to take out the basting stitches. But I definitely read it wrong, and you're definitely supposed to keep the stitches in. Like at the end, the diagrams show the stitches for this kind of like, I don't know, I call it like the present wrap fold, like darts. You're definitely supposed to leave them in, and I absolutely love this style of bodice. So I will be using it again, and I have learned a lot of things from this, but otherwise I think it turned out really well. And I am really glad I went with the poofy skirt, even though the pattern has a non-gathered skirt. Making a gathered skirt is so easy, and it just adds a lot of wearing value. And I love this piece on its own. I like the possibility of this piece with other blouses I have layered under it, but I also just love this dress, and I'm excited to kind of make more dresses from this pattern. I actually think some of those like kind of wild 70s patterns that I have would look really good made from this pattern. Like I said, it's not perfect. There are things about it I would change, but overall I'm super pleased. And I absolutely love this fabric. This was some fabric that I picked up from Zinks in Pennsylvania when I kind of did a big fabric haul. I've been working my way through that fabric before I start on the fabric from South Carolina. But I am going to get started on that fabric from South Carolina in the next few videos over the next few months. So definitely stay tuned for that. With that, that is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and will stick around and subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you. And then if you have been around, I would love your support via comment or a like on this video. It really helps me out in the algorithm, and I super appreciate it if you do that. I will see you next time. Bye!